What the fastest way you've seen someone ruin their life? A former acquaintance was playing around with a homemade crossbow that I'd helped him with. I was massively into archery and fletching, and he seemed serious about it. I typically made him leave it with me because deadly weapon. I have an explanation. He kinda didn't. Anyway, to convince his parents to let him join an archery club, he wanted to show off the crossbow we made. I thought it was a decent plan, so let him take it without any ammo. Turns out he was gaming me to get more playtime with his favorite toy, had gotten hold of some bolts, and was fucking around shooting his shed a fair bit. He somehow ended up firing a bolt that missed the shed completely, passed between the slats on his fence, and hit his neighbor's daughter in the spine. She hasn't walked since. He was severely beaten up by her unstable older brother. They both did jail time. My acquaintance was disowned and ended up homeless, and now I'm not sure where they are in life. Holy shit. I think the worst part of this is that you took all precautions to prevent any kind of accidents happening, but he somehow managed to create one anyways. My friend was drunk as shit, so I took his keys and hid them in the house so he couldn't leave. I left, and the next day found out he broke into his car and got the spare key out of the glove compartment after we left. He made it 15 miles and was basically in his driveway when he went off the road and hit a tree. Reminds me of a guy I knew from high school. Him and his buddy had decided to go hunting in the morning, but his buddy wouldn't wake up, so he decided he would just go on ahead. He didn't leave a note or anything, just took his shotgun and ammo and left. Later in the morning, buddy wakes up and hasn't heard anything from his friend and only knew he had probably gone out hunting and would be back eventually, but his friend never showed back up, so he called the cops. Turns out his friend had gone out and had accidentally shot himself, and because nobody was out with him, they just thought he was hunting all day. Felt really sorry for the guy because the coroner made it sound like if somebody was there they might have been able to do something, and I also know it tore his friend apart because he was originally going to be there but just didn't wake up. I had a friend in college who had a tendency to act before thinking, but was generally fun and well-meaning. After I had graduated, my friend apparently got coerced by a woman he was trying to sleep with, to try heroin just once. As I heard it, he refused initially, then caved because he felt pressured. My friend overdosed and died. One bad decision ended his life. R.I.P. Mike. I went to school with a kid who threw a rock off an overpass and killed a dude. Whole life down the drain at that point. Made international news. Edit, Flint, Michigan. Imagine being the dude that got hit. Just living your life driving home from work one second and literally dead the next. My friend is a teacher. She teaches the kids whose dad was killed and said she just watched the poor kid deteriorate after the dad died. Super sad and really a effed up situation. About 50 years ago, when my great-uncle was in his early 20s, he drove home so drunk that he ran over and killed 2 college students and didn't even realize it. After his initial incarceration, he didn't know how to function as a free citizen, so he keeps getting himself sent back to jail. For example, he got out of jail around a year ago and couldn't make his first month's rent. His solution was to walk to the convenience store, steal a beer, and sit on the curb waiting for the cops to arrive. I'm just picturing him getting back into the cell and letting out a sigh of relief. Home, sweet home. I had a friend years back, always kind of an odd guy, but he had a good heart. Anyway, one day, I was hanging out with him and a few other friends, and he told us he was going to get a tattoo tomorrow and had this super cool idea, but he wouldn't tell us what it was because he wanted it to be a surprise. We saw him about a week later. He had tattooed 3/4S of his face in green. Like, no design or anything, just solid dark forest green. Basically, he just left the top right quarter of his face normal and the rest was all green. He had been immediately fired from his job the day after getting the tattoo. I kind of lost touch with him shortly after that, since he moved to another city. I'd heard he wound up living in his car. No idea why he did what he did. He'd had a very good job in IT at a pretty big company and was making decent money. No clue why he thought permanently turning 3/4 of his face green would be super awesome. Dropped out of a very good college with a full scholarship, that his family could never have afforded otherwise, after 3 years due to World of Warcraft addiction. No, this wasn't me. I managed my addiction responsibly. I had a few friends who would put more time into World of Warcraft or other games than work, school, and homework. One of my friends was very smart and hardworking but had a sort of bad home life, and I guess games were an escape from that. He got held back in his last year of high school and ended up joining the military instead of being able to afford college. Now he has PTSD and pushed everyone who cared about him away. Not a ruined life and a minute story, but gaming can be a very serious addiction. I think what makes it insidious is the illusion of accomplishment and progression. When things aren't going well and you feel like a loser in your own life, you can play a video game and feel like a winner. Video games are designed to be challenging but ultimately fair and doable. Real life isn't really like that. So that makes them more appealing. When I lived in Vegas, I saw all these people come in and bet it all on black, then lose. Then the stare of disbelief as they realize their mortgage is gone and they have to explain that to whomever they had left at home. I remember a trip to Vegas when we got separated from our friend and she was trying to meet up by the casino credit office. Anyway, we didn't know where it was, so we asked an employee. He straight up refused to point us in the direction. Even when we explained we didn't want any credit, he would absolutely not tell us where it was. Guess he didn't want to see a bunch of dipshit kids ruin their lives at the casino credit office. I was there when my older brother tried heroin for the first time. Fast forward 15 years and he is constantly going to the hospital because of abscesses that appear on his arms and legs, and is almost completely cut off from the rest of the family because he's robbed our parents more than once. Every few years he swears he is going to kick the habit. The first few times we collectively ponied up cash to send him to rehab and tried to be as supportive as we could. After the 10th relapse or so, we're too exhausted to even pretend to be hopeful about his newest attempt to get clean. Early 90s, my friend was a sweet theater nerd who went to the same college as me. She started hanging out with a sketchy crowd and ignoring her old friends, especially when we tried to tell her she was losing herself. She ended up moving to Seattle to hang with her new friends. Growing up, she was the most sober person in our group. She never even drank alcohol, much less did any drugs, but 6 months later, she was dead of a heroin overdose. In the Air Force. This new guy joins and goes out to a bar, then decides to drive home. Gets a DUI. Loses all his rank, has to pay a ton in fines, but leadership fought for him and he was allowed to stay in the Air Force. 2 months later, as he's paying tons of lawyer and legal fees, he does something really stupid. Drives home from the same bar drunk and gets arrested. Loses his license and gets kicked out of the military, so loses all his income while he's thousands of dollars in debt. That's not even the worst part. A few months later, he celebrates being a civilian again by, you guessed it, going to the same bar, then driving home drunk. Arrested and put in jail for a while. I can't imagine he has many future career opportunities with a less than honorable discharge and an arrest record. Edit: I should have added that the third DUI included charges for driving without a license, since he had it suspended after the second. I had an acquaintance who was pretty successful, early 30s, good job, homeowner, etc. His next-door neighbors had custody of their niece, a 16-year-old cheerleader who was home alone all the time. They struck up a friendship. Need I say more? Actually, yes. The cops stop him randomly with her in the passenger seat. They ID her since she looks young. The call to her guardians, who deny that he has permission to take her anywhere. Here's the thing, they had crossed a county line. Boom, kidnapping charge. They break him in interrogation and he admits to sex. Boom, statutory rape charges. They convince him to unlock his phone and find her nudes in his inbox. Boom, child pornography charges. Boom, goes to the cell door. High school acquaintances were partying underage and some other kids with drama were buzzing the party in some stupid loud car. Drunk guy thinks the best way to handle this is to throw a huge stone at the car on one of its passes. Stone goes through window, hits passenger, body, not head. Driver panics and refuses to take passenger to hospital. Apparently everybody was under the influence of drugs. She bled out of internal injuries in the hours that followed. Guy who threw the stone is still in prison for manslaughter. Abusing Xanax and alcohol fucked my life up pretty good pretty quickly, crashed my car, got dumped by my girlfriend, failed all my college classes, and made a bunch of people hate me all in the span of like 2 months. Haven't touched Xanax in years and managed to somewhat pull my life back together. She took MLM seriously, invested into it. Lost friends, everyone and money. Simple. Less than 24 hours. My ex-neighbor's ex-girlfriend went on a racist road rage rant that got filmed. It went viral on Twitter. I remember reading the news article and thinking about her for some reason. She wasn't named. It wasn't until months later that I found out it was her. She was fired from her $300,000 a year job next day and immediately started getting death threats. She had to move in with her boyfriend. She tried getting a job but people were denying her. She spent $10,000 on a reputation defender, changed her name, was shunned by many family and friends. Her boyfriend, who she wanted to marry, broke up with her because he couldn't stand the months of depression. She ended up leaving the state. Have you ever seen someone ruin their life? Leave a comment. And subscribe to this channel if you wanna see more same videos.